Most people spend years trying to learn new skills, yet somehow stay stuck at the same level, while others seem to master languages, business, coding, music, and even complex careers in a fraction of the time. And what's fascinating is that brain scientists have discovered this difference has very little to do with talent, IQ, or natural ability. It comes down to a handful of learning principles that literally change how the brain builds knowledge, stores memories, and develops expertise. The surprising part is that some of the most common learning habits are actually slowing you down right now, because the brain doesn't learn best through endless repetition, constant studying, or consuming more information. In fact, many of the techniques people believe are helping them improve are quietly making learning harder, weaker, and less efficient than it needs to be. Over the next few minutes, you're going to discover why making more mistakes can accelerate your progress, why multitasking is secretly destroying your learning speed, why top performers rarely study the way most people do, and how a few simple changes can dramatically increase how fast your brain absorbs and retains new information. You'll also learn why motivation isn't something you wait for, why sleep may be one of the most powerful learning tools available, and why but one technique used by elite performers around the world can make almost any skill feel easier to master, regardless of your age, background, or experience level. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how fast learners think differently, train differently, and improve faster than everyone around them. And once you see how the brain actually learns, you'll never approach learning the same way again. First, the struggle effect. Why making mistakes makes you learn faster. Every expert you've ever admired spent years looking foolish before they looked talented because the brain doesn't grow when everything goes right. It grows the moment a mistake forces it to stop, adapt, and build a stronger neural pathway, which is why the fastest learners don't obsess over being perfect. They obsess over improving after every error. Watch a child learning to speak. They mispronounce words thousands of times, get corrected, try again, and somehow become fluent. While adults often avoid mistakes because failure feels uncomfortable, not realizing that every correction is actually the brain's signal to learn faster and remember longer. The same pattern appears everywhere, from entrepreneurs whose biggest breakthroughs came after costly failures to elite athletes who spend more time studying missed shots than successful ones. Because mistakes create a level of attention and awareness that success rarely produces, turning failures into powerful learning opportunities. The difference between fast learners and slow learners isn't intelligence, it's reaction. Slow learners treat mistakes like proof they're not good enough, while fast learners treat mistakes like valuable data, immediately asking, what went wrong and how do I fix it? Because feedback is fuel for growth. So ask yourself this: how many opportunities have you delayed because you were afraid of getting it wrong? When the truth is that every mistake is a lesson your brain desperately needs. Because the people who learn the fastest aren't the ones who fail less. They're the ones who learn from failure faster. Second, the focus myth. Why multitasking is destroying your learning speed. Every notification, every quick glance at your phone, every just 1 minute distraction forces your brain to restart its focus engine. And what most people never realize is that these tiny interruptions silently steal hours of learning progress every single week, making difficult skills feel harder than they actually are. While most people try to learn with YouTube open, messages popping up, and social media waiting one tap away, their brains are constantly switching gears, and each switch burns mental energy that should have been building stronger neural connections, turning 30 minutes of study into 10 minutes of real learning. Researchers discovered that deep learning happens when your brain stays locked onto one challenge long enough to enter a state of intense concentration, because that is when information moves beyond temporary awareness and starts becoming a permanent skill that can be used automatically in real life. Imagine two people starting the exact same skill today. One spends 3 hours distracted by notifications and multitasking, while the other protects just 45 minutes of uninterrupted focus. After a few months, the difference becomes shocking, because focused practice compounds like interest while distracted effort barely accumulates. The people who learn fastest are rarely the smartest in the room. They are simply the ones who defend their attention like a valuable asset, because in a world designed to distract you every second, the ability to focus deeply has become a superpower that separates average performers from extraordinary learners. Third, the memory secret top students use. Every time you reread the same page, your brain creates a dangerous illusion that says, I already know this. But the moment someone asks you to explain it, the answer disappears, because recognition is not memory, and feeling familiar with information is completely different from actually owning it. The highest performing students don't spend hours highlighting textbooks or endlessly rereading notes. They force their brains into retrieval mode by closing the book and pulling information from memory, because every successful recall strengthens neural pathways and tells the brain, this information matters, keep it. Think about how you remember your home address, your childhood phone number, or lyrics from a song you haven't heard in years. Those memories survive because your brain retrieved them repeatedly, not because you kept staring at them over and over again. The moment learning starts to feel difficult is usually the exact moment real learning is happening, because struggling to remember creates stronger connections than passive reading ever could, turning temporary information into knowledge that stays with you long after the study session ends. So the next time you're tempted to read the same chapter 5 times, read it once, close the book, and challenge yourself to recall everything you can, because the fastest learners in the world don't consume more information. They train their brains to retrieve it. Fourth, the dopamine loop. How successful people trick their brains into learning. Most people think motivation comes first, but brain science shows the opposite. Your brain releases dopamine after progress, not before it, which is why scrolling social media feels effortless while learning a valuable skill feels difficult at the beginning. Because social platforms flood your brain with instant rewards, while real growth asks you to earn them one small win at a time. The fastest learners never focus on mastering an entire skill at once. They focus on winning the next 60 seconds because every tiny success sends a message to the brain that says, this matters, creating a dopamine loop that builds momentum, confidence, and an almost addictive desire to keep improving long after most people would have already quit. Imagine 2 people learning guitar. One tries to master a complete song on day 1 and feels overwhelmed, while the other learns a single chord, celebrates that victory, then learns another and another. Weeks later, the second person is dramatically ahead because their brain associated learning with progress instead of frustration. This is the hidden reason top performers seem obsessed with small goals. They understand that every tiny milestone becomes fuel for the next one, turning discipline into excitement and transforming difficult practice sessions into a series of rewarding challenges that keep motivation alive even when the initial excitement disappears. The real secret is that motivation is not something you wait for. It is something you manufacture through progress. And the moment you stop chasing huge results and start collecting small wins, your brain begins working with you instead of against you, making learning faster, easier, and far more enjoyable than most people ever experience. Fifth, why sleeping more can make you learn faster. Most people think learning happens when you're studying, reading, practicing, and grinding for hours. But neuroscience shows something shocking. Some of the most important learning happens after you close the book, put down the guitar, leave the gym, or shut off the laptop, because while your body rests, your brain starts a hidden shift where it sorts, strengthens, and stores everything you worked so hard to learn during the day. Every night, your brain quietly replays important information again and again, strengthening neural connections and turning fragile memories into lasting skills. Which means the person who studies for 3 focused hours and gets quality sleep often learns faster than the person who studies 6 exhausted hours and sacrifices sleep, because the brain cannot build strong knowledge on a tired foundation. Deep sleep is where the real magic happens, because this is the stage where neural pathways become stronger, patterns become clearer, and complex skills begin to feel natural. Which is why musicians, athletes, programmers, entrepreneurs, and top performers often notice improvement the next day even when they didn't practice again, because their brain continued working while they slept. This is exactly why students who stay awake all night before an exam usually perform worse than those who sleep properly. Because sleep deprivation weakens focus, memory, decision-making, and learning speed, creating the illusion of working harder while secretly making the brain less capable of remembering what matters most when the pressure arrives. The next time you feel guilty about getting enough sleep, remember this powerful truth. Sleep is not a break from learning. Sleep is part of learning itself. And while your eyes are closed and the world is quiet, your brain is still working behind the scenes, upgrading the very skills, knowledge, and abilities that can change your future. Sixth, The fast learner formula. Teach what you learn. The fastest learners aren't the people who consume the most information. They're the people who can explain it clearly. The moment you try teaching a skill to someone else, every weak spot in your understanding becomes impossible to hide, forcing your brain to connect ideas instead of merely memorizing facts. And that single shift is often what separates average performers from those who master skills at an extraordinary speed. Top entrepreneurs, elite athletes, and world-class professionals use this principle constantly because teaching transforms passive knowledge into active understanding. When you simplify a complex concept so a child could grasp it, your brain is forced to organize information, remove confusion, and build stronger neural connections, making the skill dramatically easier to remember and apply under real-world pressure. Try this. After learning something new, close the book, turn off the video, and explain the concept out loud to an imaginary beginner. No notes, no shortcuts, no copying, just your own words. Within seconds, you'll discover exactly what you know, what you forgot, and what you never truly understood in the first place, giving you a roadmap for faster improvement. This is why many people spend years studying yet struggle to perform, while others make rapid progress in months. The difference isn't intelligence, it's feedback. Every time you teach, your brain receives immediate feedback about gaps in your knowledge, allowing you to fix weaknesses before they become permanent habits that slow down growth. The moment you teach something, your brain starts treating that information as important. Memories become stronger, understanding becomes deeper, and learning becomes faster. So if you want to master any skill, stop asking how much more you should study and start asking how simply you can teach what you already know.